our book club today, we are reading Your Next 5 Moves, and we will be discussing chapters 4 and chapters 5. Chapters 4 is the incredible power of processing issues. And chapter 5, how to solve for X, a methodology for effective decision making.
So chapter 4 is kind of a nice little process of going through problems and really accepting responsibility for whatever course it is, right? A lot of it potentially is even maybe out of your control, but there's maybe, we always have a little bit of responsibility within whatever course of actions kind of come through everything. Taking responsibility, you're finding somebody else to blame, are you trying to escape something? Take responsibility. Processing steps when someone ticks you off. I think this is the conversation I was kind of having with about the coffee issue. I think, right, there was one of some famous talking head or Seth Rogen or something was an investment or something like that. He was talking it out, and it kind of blew up in his face. And it wasn't his investment, but he kind of sold it. He got involved in it, and then he took responsibility for it, even though maybe a little bit out of his control of some of the stuff. Now, when I was kind of going through it, it's just kind of processing steps when somebody ticks you off, right? Take responsibility for the outcome. But I feel like he stopped that. Did everybody catch 4, 5, 6, 7? There was almost 7 steps of processing, of kind of going through a process. I feel like he started going through chapter 1, 2, and 3, and then he kind of just stopped and kind of jumped to how do we deal with a crisis? Did anybody kind of catch that little? Wait, what about the rest of the list?
Yeah, I figured it might be I figured it might be later.
Okay.
But to your point, it wasn't like there was less steps that he mentioned.
Okay. But yeah, it was definitely one of those things I thought was really interesting. Take responsibility for the outcome, whether it's I do it as far as my business goes. If no matter what's happening or my personal life, I gotta take responsibility. There may have, you can rationalize, you can kind of talk about, well, this, that, and the other, but ultimately it does kind of fall on your shoulders, and you guys say, yeah, this is what happened, and this is it. Well, this is my part on it, and how can I do to make it better? What can I do to do this to alleviate this potentially crisis in the future? I don't know. I wish we would have gotten the whole list, though, because I was very excited about some of these lists. And that was the whole point of kind of doing it. And then I started taking a look. I was like, wait a second, you stopped on 3 on this one. Now, I think the other ones there's a whole bunch on there. Handwriting, 10 types of crisis, external forces that kind of create some crises on there, right? Although those are really interesting because it definitely kind of comes into it. Health issues, technology issues, organizational issues, violence, revenge, defamation, market corrections, white swan, black swan events, kind of personal life, natural disasters, really kind of these type of crises. And, I'm going to use Lori as an example on this. Black swan event, I guess, is kind of what happened to Laura and the real estate industry over the past, well, I guess it's been going on for a little bit, but over the past month or so, a lot of stuff has come in, as well as going to affect me. And it's now it potentially is a crisis. Now, how are we going to deal with all this stuff? I know, Laura, you probably really speak really well on this thing, in the sense of a black swan, a big law change. Actually, 2 things, right? There's a black swan event on the legal side with a new law, the CTA, beneficial ownership reporting requirements, brand new, totally changed the entire game and continues to change, right? So this is a new law that came that every lawyer that does with startups or works with organizational companies, brand new rule, brand new thing, crisis across, $10,000 worth of fees. So that implemented a whole bunch of things that I had to implement in my practice to try and avoid having a big crisis for all my clients. That's something that kind of came through. And Laura, you could probably talk about what's your black swan event?
Our NAR changes.
Yes.
It's crazy, but as I was reading this, and he talks about the crisis, and he talks about being prepared for the crisis, and all of those things. I think that if you take this book to heart and read it and really put the steps in place, to your point, these crises, if you've got plan A, B, C, and D in place, and you've already thought ahead, a lot of times these crises are opportunities for people to actually benefit. So to your point, Craig, the huge crisis for businesses, there will be a lot of victims. There will be a lot of people, oh, this was not my fault. This was not my fault. The people that see the change, see the motion coming into place. I mean, you are capitalizing on this, right? You're capitalizing on the new law, and should. It's important. It's a value. It's not a capitalization to where you're taking advantage of the situation. You're creating a system for your clients to not get fined this $10,000, and it's only going to cost them what, like 300 or 500 or something, like something small for you to do the filing, whatever it is. So yes, there's a cost, but it's much more reduced. And so I think those of us that can look for these crises, we can actually find situations where we can capitalize on it and make it better for others, especially if we're looking 5 steps ahead. I expect 50%, 40% of the realtors to exit the market because of this. We are going to see a mass exodus. And so it's at these moments in your career, if you pivot with that crisis, you take more than your fair share of market. And that's when companies break through to that next level. And so that's our goal, is to get ourselves in place. We knew it was coming. We're staying educated. We've already taken 3 or 4 classes. We already know how to have conversations with our clients. We already have scripts in place. Whereas, the vast majority of people don't. I mean, last year in 2024, 50% of realtors did not make one closing.
Well,
because of the shift in the market. So 50% of people were starving to death if they were in my industry with an active license. And I think this is just going to be more of the same. And it's not really a crisis. It's just a different perspective. You just have to be ready to move with the market.
Sure. I imagine, Dave, and you have very similar from these external, at least legal forces that kind of come in. I say legal, not I mean it's a lawyer stuff like that, but I know I keep seeing stuff that I don't probably know it, but changes in the tax rules when it comes to IRAs. I keep feeling like there's a lot of stuff that's coming around that I keep seeing on my news feed that definitely can impact, I guess your business kind of situation as well for you and how you kind of run things like that.
Right.
Technology and how people, work within it. I imagine all that, definitely big shifts that they deal with. Any comment on, as far as the,
So, when you think about like how he's going through and processing issues, it actually reminds me of so slightly outside of the CPA realm, more into the IT audit. You have what are called like incident response plans, disaster recovery plans, and business continuity plans. And so what it does is it takes all of these issues and events and almost takes the emotion out of them, because essentially you train your entire team to recognize, okay, well, this is an issue or this is a problem. Pull up the incident response plan, go pull up the business continuity plan, figure out what the steps are. And then from there, it's, kind of going through and just solving the issue. Which kind of, and I'm pretty sure if you were to take all of his little steps and kind of answer them, you could essentially kind of build your own kind of methodology similar to essentially solve all of those issues and take the emotion out of them. Because I think a lot of the time it's the emotion that really kind of leads you to mess up. And if you just have a clear process, it makes it so much easier, because it's like, oh crap, I'm scared. Oh wait, I remember. I have a plan for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of brings up the next list, right? As far as what are the 5 things as far as going to extend or potentially decrease a crisis issue, right? Your strategy on it, right? Your level of poise, kind of going through it. Like, is there panic mode? Let's jump off the ship. Let's get out of here, right? Oh, slow down. Just because there's a change in the rules doesn't mean that we need to exit, and there's never going to be the real estate industry is going away. The law firm industry is going to go away. No one's going to be doing real estate. Laura, the CTA is expanding into real estate transactions that they're talking about. Hasn't been done yet, and they have comment period in there. So every real estate transaction, not only every corporate formation, they want to know every buyer and seller of every real estate thing out there to be filed with the CTA. Like, it's bananas. This behemoth of overreach, in my opinion, but hey, it is what it is. But again, level opposed. There's going to be a lot of potentially changes, and it's going to either make the crisis worse by being panicking, if you will. But you have maybe having a good strategy. How are we going to deal with this? That's going to decrease the potential of the crisis, right? Over exaggerating to make it worse, under exaggerating to make it worse. So I thought it was a nice little 5 little pieces that make it better, as well as what's coming down the pike. Again, the 5 moves. Okay, great. This is definitely happening. What's going to happen next? What's going to be the first cause? Oh, everybody's going to do this. Okay, great. Now we're going to have a new reporting on this. Okay, so now it changes how many onboard clients and things like on that nature, having these discussions with them, making sure that we're getting all the proper compliance on the back end to do the filings, and kind of keeping, as well as ongoing compliance with it, and keeping your files updated. So yeah. Any comment on any of those 5 things? I know we're kind of trying to push forward fast.
No, I would
No,
just say that kind of goes back to what Laura was saying. That's what really kind of allows people to go in and really take advantage of those situations.
Yeah.
and then having the
Sorry,
action plan that's okay. Having the action plan takes, some of the stress away. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so important that before you sit down, and I love this book because it really draws it out, like before you sit down to do anything major, you should have an action plan in place that has A, B, C, and D, and what if, and what if, and what if. I was in a class one time years and years ago, probably 2.5 decades ago. I was very young. And they were talking about building the perfect team, right? So and they used animals, and it was 4 people on a team, same kind of thing as the disc profile, and this and that and this and that. One person plans, one person does. One of the positions that they had on that 4-person team, though, was the person who sees the problems, right? So they say when you have the dream team and you're building a company or building a something, whatever that is, a company, a system, or whatever, you want to bring that person in that can foreshadow and see those problems at the end of the project, because if you bring that person in on the beginning, they'll shoot the whole project down and it'll never get started because they see nothing but challenges. But bringing them in after the plan is kind of in place helps you to put, these steps in place to alleviate that stuff. And I just think having a professional by your side is so important when you are making those big decisions. Like, I have a client right now, she fired me at the beginning of the week and was going to hire somebody who was going to get her to do something illegal. And I told her, I said, listen, if that's the path you want to go, like, go. I'm not telling you it's good or it's bad. But at the end of the day, is that really the decision you want to make? Is it worth potentially spending, time in jail by doing what you're trying to do? And to your point, David, the reason she was thinking unclearly was she was emotional. Right? She's been dealing with a lot of stress. She's ready for this property to sell. The power got turned off yesterday. It was a really stressful week for her. And so having me, a professional, stand next to her and help her think clearly, I think is just super important. And having that plan is super important.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Kind of wrapping up this chapter with a really good list of character traits that I feel like, a good processor, right? I mean, obviously this chapter is talking about, processing problems and kind of going in, and successful people are ones that can kind of take a situation, whether good, bad, or indifferent, and kind of process through it and kind of will come out the other side, out of that tunnel, smelling like roses and kind of perfect, in that sense. Some of the successful issues of processors, I'm curious what everybody's thoughts are. Lots of questions. People ask lots of questions. They're generally be a good processor. Looking at what's the truth of the matter, not so much what right, wrong, or different. Saying, what is the true crux of the issue, and not giving up any excuses. You want to be challenged. You have questions. You're curious. You want to prevent more problems than causing more than causing the problems. Great negotiators are good processors, and ones that want to look for a permanent solution. Band-aid, 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 band-aid. Eventually, all the bandages start getting so heavy they all fall off, and then you got a giant gaping wound, right? I'm kind of curious. I'm not, am I the best processor in the world? But no, because when I look at some of the stuff, I try not to give excuses. I take responsibility for things like that. It's not anybody else's. I don't like finding excuses. This is what happened, and it's on me. try to ask a lot of questions. I think I'm a decent negotiator, and I do like to look for permanent solutions, not kind of the strap-ons. But do I prevent more problems? Maybe. So there's definitely probably some things I need to work on, within it. That's probably something that I need to make sure that I'm kind of working on in that sense. I don't know. Any kind of character traits that you guys think, what, this one's kind of on me, or this one is something that I maybe need to work on a little bit better?
I definitely tend to get emotional sometimes. Like, even though I don't take it personally, I get invested a little heavier than maybe I should. And not always just business. I think that's probably, and being a high D, I make decisions quickly and jump quickly. So I think that slowing down would probably be my number 2. Just slow down, take a breath, actually process the whole thing, and then move forward. I mean, we talk about that a lot when we talk about me talking to new people and doing our historic homie business. I'm like, fuck, I gave too much money away again.
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely. Asking more questions and listening, waiting for the answer. Instead of kind of like, okay, this is what I need. Go, boom. Wait a second, I didn't ask enough questions. I don't. This is really where I'm going, kind of thing.
Yeah, fair enough. And I feel like, kind of jumping into that, a lot of the times I'm the opposite. I may be the one kind of asking too many questions, and then it's just like, well, dude, when are we starting? And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Sure.
So, but yeah, and then I mean, as well for me, I would also say, what is it? Kind of just taking ownership of issues. I always take the ownership after a minute, but sometimes after that initial, oh, dude, you messed this up. It's like, no, I didn't. I didn't do that.
Sure.
There's always just that I want to do that, and it's just like, God, come on, I gotta, I gotta own it before we can fix it. So
yeah, work on the no excuses.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Good. We'll kind of rolling it. I'm sorry.
It is the traffic.
Yeah.
I was late because of the traffic.
Correct.
In traffic.
So kind of rolling in. What the hell just happened? Rolling into chapter 5. This is the second chapter that we read. It really kind of goes into, now that we kind of gone through the processing steps and what makes a good processor is attributes and not. Now it kind of goes into a little bit more as far as solving some of these problems and then processing it well with that. I thought it was a nice little, the solving for the problem X, and another great little chart, investigate, solve, implement, with kind of breakdowns within each one of those kind of characterization. Investigate, what's the level of urgency, right? For me, the CTA, well, that came into effect, and that gave us a 90-day window for anything that would happen this year, right? So I only have 90 days. It's kind of an important thing. If clients don't do this, it's a big fine, right? So it's pretty urgent that we kind of get into it. Total impact and loss and gains, kind of looking at that and developing, we're looking for what the X is, and then we kind of work on how to solve it, who was needed, what we need to put into place, solutions, different variety of solutions. So, as you kind of go into that, I put it as, I thought, a nice little, not a Venn diagram, but a nice little chart, if you will, is what he talked about. That was a nice little piece. If anybody kind of get any positive impact, I think a lot of stuff that you kind of do in general. I think we're all kind of relatively entrepreneurial. We're all kind of some of this stuff we're already doing in that sense. So I kind of think about all this, but I don't think that the level of depthness of the breakout I thought was really good, within in that chapter. Any comments on it?
I appreciated this chapter from the standpoint of, like, even when you think about the title of it, it almost kind of puts it in like a math sense. And for me, the one thing that I actually liked about math was there was always a systematic way to solve your issue or solve your problem. And so, just like solving for X, and so it's just like, it almost kind of takes those problems, and it's just like, just treat it like a math problem, right? Solve for X. You know what the issue is.
Do you know what the issue is, right? That's the second part of this chapter. what is the real X, the deepest why, right? Well,
Fair enough.
I'm not getting enough business. Well, why? Well, because no one hires me. Well, why? Because
Correct.
I don't know, because I wear brown shoes. Why? Well, because they fit my feet. Why? Right?
Right.
Are you
Right.
asking? That's so important. Like I thought that's a really key point. Like, are you solving the right problem? Right. Excellent. Well, I definitely glad because you got to solve with that X and you got to know that deepest why. Right. Making sure that I thought it was a really nice point within this chapter. Again, making sure that you're solving for the right problem and not for a problem that's really not going to be beneficial to you, kind of thing. Where's your focus at? Are you focused on the real thing?
Well, it was just a good reminder to always dig deep, because sometimes you think the problem is one thing and it's so subsurface that you get that, that fixed, and the next thing you know, the problem's not actually solved.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, and you end up wasting your time essentially because essentially what you're doing is solving symptoms. But if you're solving symptoms, it's just like taking cold
Tylenol.
medicine and you have a flu, right?
Sure.
It's like that. I mean, the symptoms will go away, but you're gonna be sick for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're still sick.
Yeah. I have another great list. Five things to kind of focus on. Making sure that you're identifying the real issue. Right? Is the issue, is the real, exactly what you said? The first one, is it the issue or the symptom of the issue? Right? Is it the runny nose that you're trying to solve, or what's causing the runny nose? Right? I'm trying to solve the runny nose. Well, you solve that, you're not really causing what's causing it. Right? Making sure that you're solving the issue, not the symptom of the issue. Is it an assumption? Are you trying to solve something that's really not even true? Making sure that, in that sense, kind of to think about, is it a tangible issue, or is it just a hurt ego thing that you're kind of thinking about? What am I trying to solve? Oh, I'm trying to solve my bruise. My client didn't hire me. Cool. Well, why? Why didn't I hire you? Right? Well, because they did. Well, why did they like you? Well, I didn't know enough information. Why? Well, I didn't study enough. Why? Great. Okay. Take time. Great. Now I spent the time to study more. So now I'm trying to get through there. So yeah, it's a really good, I don't know, really kind of breaking out the thought process, within these couple of chapters. I thought were really good, in my opinion, and kind of hopefully will sink in a little bit, and hopefully make my life better. All things, because again, we talk a lot about the business, but I think a lot of this does kind of come into it just as important on your personal life, issues that kind of come up with that, and kind of making sure, because it's all your life. It's all what you're doing.
Yes, and it's all a good idea to kind of know the nitty gritty and the ins and out of what you're trying to do. And I think this book makes you look at things at such a big view with all the chapters, that if you look at each problem, each thing that you're trying to do from this lens, I think that success is much more achievable.
Yeah.
And when you find that bump in the road, you really dig down and get into what is actually the problem, or the root will get you to that point quicker.
Okay.
Is that our staging picture behind you? I love it.
Yes,
it is. I just noticed it the whole time, even on. Oh. I'm glad you're using it.
Yeah, waiting for the next house.
I love it. Everything else is just in the basement of my house, not being used. So that's probably a much better place for it. That's hysterical. That's hysterical. Sorry, that was a total squirrel, babe. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. But also, I think we're trying. I mean, we have a meet next right about 1 minute. So we have chapters. We did 5, so 6. Hold on.
I would say 6 and 7. That's another hour.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pulling up the book to see the length of the chapters. But yeah, 6 and 7, that works fine. Perfectly fine. Let's do chapter 6 and 7 for next Tuesday.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And then obviously we'll be off the following week. Then I think we'll be off the following week, unless, Laura, we're doing this from DR.
No, David, we love you. We will not be zooming in from the Dominican.
Don't. You make me jealous.
Good.
Okay. Awesome. Well, appreciate everybody. Thanks for kind of putting this on a 2-part delay, and getting it done. But glad we got through chapters 4 and 5. Yay!
Absolutely.
All right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
y'all
Have a
next
great
week.
day, Laura.